你係如何透過唔同嘅措施、唔同嘅政策去適應咁樣嘅一個轉變。透過適應呢啲轉變，你就可以把握到唔同嘅機遇啦。好啦，我哋睇下有關綠色方面嘅資金使用嘅趨勢。喺國際趨勢嚟講，我哋可以睇到已經係超過半成喺2019年嘅時候，成個綠色方面嘅資金啊、債券啊、有關綠色金融方面嘅衍生嘅產品嗰個嘅資金量係超過半成咁樣係上升。而喺中國，我哋可以睇到發綠債，即係去使用去籌集有關綠色方面嘅金融產品所帶嚟嘅資金嗰個嘅轉型啊，已經由嗰個 non-financial corporate 嘅嗰個比例咧，已經係上升咗，去到2021年嘅好大嘅部分。大家可以睇到咧，棕色部分就係嗰個上升升幅嘅改變部分，亦都因為唔同國家嘅碳中和嘅一啲目標啦、氣候中和嘅目標，令到以中國為例，嗰個嘅資金使用投資喺能源轉變、能源改革、運輸方面嘅嗰個資金量係超級大幅度嘅上升。大家可以咧之後咧再去睇，因為咧今日嗰個時間實在係有限。去到香港嘅一個綠色資金嘅一個趨勢啦，都係順住我哋國家嘅政策去改善、去改變嘅。唔知大家有冇睇到？我哋係可以咧對應到佢嗰個嘅使用嘅分配、資源分配、資金分配嘅。例如中國，我哋喺零碳、減碳同埋電子化嘅一個 sector 嘅資源使用啊，同埋能源使用嘅呢個 sector 當中咧，我哋可以睇到喺香港，特別喺building 方面啊、交通方面、能源變遷方面，呢啲都係重點咧資金去投注、資金分配嘅位嚟嘅。所以咧，若果大家係可以喺呢一個大嘅綠色資金嘅流動當中，去揾到、去把握到呢個機遇嘅時候，唔好忘記就係唔好自己一路衝一路衝。我知道大家係非常之有熱情，同埋係有諗法、有創意嘅，都要咧貼合咧國家、當地政府嘅政策嘅一個改變，因為所有嘅資金係因着政策嘅一個條例嘅一個變動咧而去分配嘅。所以若果你係咁啱搭正喺呢個分配當中啦，咁啊恭喜你啦！將來你嘅資源係會越嚟越豐富，行得越嚟越多，發展嘅空間都越嚟越廣嘅。好啦，呢一度咧都睇到喺香港近年啦，唔同嘅上市公司佢嗰個嘅披露。喺從前嘅 ESG 披露，喺佢自己公司喺自己網站上面嘅披露咧，已經去到喺政府嘅網站上面嘅披露咯。所以即係話咧，未來你哋所創造嘅每一個資源，所創造嘅每一個平台，有關碳方面嘅數據咧，都將要成為政府特別去檢查、特別去考察嘅一個表現嚟嘅。咁頭先有講到啦，若果係大家要跟得上時勢嘅一個資金嘅流向，要跟隨住我哋嘅大方向政策啊 regulations 嘅一個改善，一個嘅update。呢一度就係喺環保署、香港環保署所拎落嚟嘅一個website 嘅一個頁面啦。咁當中咧，如果大家有時間去睇嘅時候咧，你可以睇到根據2050年香港要力爭呢個碳中和嘅時候，我哋政府已經喺唔同嘅報告當中去寫咗有關電力啊、有關資源、有關能源，佢嗰個嘅改革要喺幾多年達到幾多 %。例如其中一個報告啦，可以睇得出，我哋喺電力使用當中，要喺2035年去減少15% 嘅電力。但係大家知道嘛？全港嗰個電力使用得最多嘅係喺邊一方面呢？大家可以知道喺全港建築方面多啲啊，交通方面多啲啊，定係 冷氣機我哋建築入邊嘅呢啲使用多啲呢？呢啲若果大家唔知嘅時候，如何喺你哋本身嘅嗰個專業領域當中去作出一個更加符合社會需求嘅呢個適應嘅層面呢？係咪？咁所以呢，提大家就係focus 啦，喺官方嘅一啲資源，好多唔同嘅創業創新嘅一啲資金咧，其實係可以去幫助到大家去發展嘅。只要大家咧係真係符合到即係社會嘅需求啦，同埋我哋由地區城去到國家城呢一個碳中和目標嘅嗰個嘅雄心壯志。呢度簡單披露下最近啦，我睇到嘅一個非常之誇張、好吸引嘅一個工作嘅招聘，就係政府工嚟嘅，係政府入邊內部好少可有一個佢會括住俾你知道係碳中和嘅職業嚟嘅。咁大家可以睇到大概自己上網 search 嘅時候可以睇更加多有關嘅職責嗰啲嘢。咁呢度咧其實都係講緊就係喺 ESG 幾年前嘅發生，幾年前嘅浮現。大家其實咧都唔係太重視呢一方面嘅發展嘅，所以當時咧其實環境方面嘅人才係有嘅，但係就嗰個資金嘅方面資源方面就令到好多大部分嘅現象啦，就係環境方面嘅人才咧都慢慢離開自己嘅本業，亦都令到而家大趨勢地 focus 喺專注喺環境方面嘅人才大大減少。市場上業界之間其實係非常非常緊缺有關 ESG 嘅人才，有關碳中和、綠色金融嘅人才。喺舊年8月份嘅時候，金融發展局佢哋有份報告啦，就HKMA 佢哋喺8月份放出嚟一個人才嘅研究評估當中就報告啦，原來咧香港出現咗一個非常之大嘅緊缺嘅情況，就係環境人才就唔識金融，金融科技人才又唔識環境。咁所以咧喺一個碳中和力爭2050年香港要實現到呢個目標嘅一個雄心壯志底下，若果大家喺自己嘅領域當中，你可以喺ESG 嘅層面出發，學多啲，諗多啲碳中和嘅目標相關嘅政策轉變當中，學多啲，諗多啲嘅時候，你係可以喺唔同範圍嘅行業當中咧，係捉到最大嘅機遇嘅。例如科技發展啦，例如科研嘅創新啦，例如唔同嘅電器、機械嘅使用唔同金融器具、金融科技嘅一個應用都可以咧，令到你可以係把握到呢個社會上面而家最大嘅碳中和嘅機遇。就咁講出嚟，可能大家就會比較上覺得抽象少少。但係今日希望大家喺即係呢一個嘅 talk 當中啦，係可以有多少少呢一方面嘅insight， 亦都希望可以幫到大家喺未來係真係搣到一個自己所中意嘅熱情發揮嘅一個領域當中咧，都期待大家可以喺大家唔同領域當中嘅decision making 決策嘅範圍當中，可以係喺 ESG 嘅層面上面，可持續發展嘅層面上面去做得更加多。呢度再次提醒大家啦，所有嘅項目，所有嘅行業入邊領域方面嘅發展都好，唔好忘記真正嘅推動嘅力量喺邊度。唔好忘記就係喺成個以資金去推動嘅市場當中，你嗰個領域係可以如何係把握到同 ESG 嘅關係，可以如何透過 ESG 嘅發展係一展所長，發揮你嘅熱情。咁未來就係屬於大家嘅。2060年中國要達至碳中和，2050年香港達至碳中和，距離而家仲有30至40年嘅時間。呢30至40年嘅時間就係由我哋呢一代嘅青年 呢一代嘅青少年去創造嘅。咁所以未來一個可持續發展嘅金融回報、財務回報，你嘅熱情、你嘅興趣一展所長嘅地方，可以由而家開始做起啦。咁就差唔多分享到呢一度，多謝大家。咁有關大家若果係想知道更加多 ESG 嘅內容啦，一啲實踐嘅經歷啦，一啲而家業界唔同嘅面對緊嘅問題啊，或者係學多啲知識增長，for你之後入職有優勢嘅話咧，大家都即係我喺HKPC 生產力局同埋 HKMA 協會當中，都係有課程咧，係可以俾大家去讀多啲、知多啲嘅。咁通常咧，對象咧都有一啲係從業10幾年嘅管理者啊、directors 啊，都有嘅。咁就希望大家係有更加多嘅空間，可以去學多啲同唔同嘅業界嘅專家、業界嘅經驗人士係可以有互動交流，可以更加精準地把握到自己嘅方向咯。咁有關呢一個 poster 咧，就係我自己呢一邊公司協辦嘅國際環境領袖視野有限公司，係同香港嘅卓越學者計劃，即係一個叫做 Hong Kong Scholarship 嘅得獎者協會去共同舉辦嘅有關環境教育方面嘅一個論壇啦，都歡迎大家去睇，係register， 即係嗰個 QR code 係可以報名，可以係透過呢個 panel 同真係業界做緊有關CDP， 即係有關 ESG 方面嘅數據方面啦、投資方面啦，以及環境教育方面啦，同埋就係自然天然資源嘅保育方面嘅專家去一齊去討論，就係大家各自嘅發展可以如何由社會現象現況嚟到去睇自己而家開始嘅定位，可以如何幫到大家喺未來踏入唔同嘅方向嘅時候，都希望即係有個咁樣嘅平台俾大家去問多啲問題，去知道更加多嘅。係咁今日咧就差唔多啦，就分享到呢一度。感謝大家，若果有疑問或者係問題嘅時候，可以透過而家嘅時間去討論一下。好，咁而家咧，我就睇到咧，對話框入邊咧就有一條問題，就話當應聘緊一個有關 ESG 嘅工作嘅時候，你可以點樣準備好自己啊？係啦。就可能呢個同學仔佢係一個啱啱畢業嘅，或者係而家接近畢業嘅學生，咁非常之好。我覺得呢個問題咧係問得好有智慧嘅。點樣可以預備好自己？首先就係讓自己接觸多啲咯，接觸多啲有關 ESG 嘅方面嘅嘢。ESG 其實就咁聽落去咧係一嚿嘢，但係其實佢包含住嘅係成個社會而家一個好大嘅變化。咁所以最直接嘅就係你要搞清楚乜嘢係 ESG，即係頭先我哋有談到嘅一個上市公司嘅報告入邊嘅內容啦，等你大概知道點解有 ESG 呢一樣嘢，都要知道 ESG 佢嘅一個正面同埋負面嘅影響係會產生幾多。ESG 嘅重要性啦，簡單嚟講就係頭先我所講嘅嗰啲嘢啦。咁再加上就係我建議你去睇下港交所 ESG Guideline 嗰個報告披露指引 Appendix 27，大家直接喺網上打 Appendix 27 ESG 其實就可以揾到㗎啦。咁喺入邊希望係可以幫到你啦，喺 General Disclosure 同埋 KPI 方面更加了解 ESG 佢所呈現出嚟嘅一個樣子會係點樣，亦都幫助你。若果你係唔係直接係環境背景嘅人士咧，我都鼓勵你去睇多啲有關 ESG 投資嘅資訊，有關綠色金融嘅資訊，有關碳中和成個資金分配嘅一個架構嚟到去裝備好自己。 仲有冇其他問題？唔該。
Thank you, Ms. Vicky Hui, for sharing your insights and hosting our ESG Forum. Next up, maybe can we have a group photo together?
Sure, thank you.
pointer？係。Next up, let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Helen Orr to give us coaching on presentation.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Can I have my presentation slides up? I'm Helen Orr. I'm an executive coach as well as a trainer, and I'm very happy that I'm here today to work on presentation skills with you. To start off with, I would actually like to ask a question. Maybe all of you online or on site can all think about it. How do we actually open a presentation such that it can be engaging? Opening of the presentation. How can we make it engaging? What are some of your thoughts? This is actually a question that all experienced presenter will ask themselves of each presentation. So before making a presentation, if you are an experienced presenter, you would actually ask yourself, how am I going to make the opening engaging? And my next question is, why is it even important? Why is it important that the opening of a presentation has to be engaging. And that goes back to the purpose of presentation. I think a lot of us here are very experienced presenters. I looked at some of your presentations yesterday and I thought they were really good. Your analysis are good. The way you present it is good. You have a lot of details and you are very articulate and you are very passionate. But what is exactly the purpose of presenting? The purpose of presenting, I thought from this quote, is very, very interesting. He says that the purpose of presentation is not to transmit information, but rather to transform learners, or if we look at learners as audience, to transform audience. And therefore, if our aim to present is to transform an audience, then there are things that we want to do in a presentation. We actually want to engage them. We want to stimulate their thinking. We want to make sure that they walk away having some new ideas and even being willing to do something different. So it is therefore a very, very different kind of presentation as something that you just want to transmit knowledge. You actually want people, after hearing your presentation, to walk away being excited and doing something new. So then the opening of the presentation becomes very important because you would very much like to capture the audience attention. You would like to stimulate their interest, and it is actually kicking off an influencing process. So you're not just presenting ideas, you are actually trying to influence each and every one of your audience. Now, the title of my presentation today was Power Up Your Presentation. So as I mentioned, yesterday when I looked at all your presentations, I thought they were really good. So what we are talking about is not basic presentation skills. So it's not about your body's gesture and eye contact and things like that. But rather we are talking about something more advanced. How can we actually power up our presentation? And today I'm going to offer 3 questions and 5 strategies that is going to help you to do that. So first, let's look at the 3 questions. A really simple question. So after I present this, I will actually give you 10 minutes or so to actually think through your presentation and to see how you can apply these 3 questions to your presentation. The first question is, what is the main purpose and objective of my presentation? So what is it that I was trying to convey? Why am I doing this presentation? So for me today is very clear. I looked at your presentation yesterday. I felt that you guys already have the basic presentation skills. So for me today, it is very straightforward. I would like to bring you a level up so that people would listen to you. So that's my purpose. But what about your presentation? What is the purpose? If we're talking about hackathon, are you trying to get a new idea across? Are you trying to get funding? Are you trying to get people to be willing to invest in your product? Or are you trying to get people to be interested in saying, I want to give it a try? So what is it? What is the main objective? And of course, in determining the main objective, you have to have the audience in mind. You have to know what audience you are facing. A second question, now because we are trying to influence people, then there must be something new that you are trying to communicate. If we are just talking about everything that your audience already know, then I almost wonder, why are you even on stage? Or why are you even presenting? So what is the new idea that you actually want to communicate? In my presentation today, I want to focus very much on the opening. So it is different from usual presentation skills training that you have probably attended or listened to before. Because most of the time, presentation skills training focus on the basic presentation skills. As I mentioned, the body gesture, the eye contact, and etc. Some might go into the tone and pauses, make sure that you have pauses. But today I'm going to go into something very new. I'm going to talk about opening. When I say new idea, I have to put a quotation mark, because it's not as if I am the only person who have talked about opening before. If you go online, you will find a lot of materials that talk about how to do a good opening. But I would say it is new because people have not presented it in the way I have presented. And people probably have not presented to this audience before. You probably have not heard of a full presentation that is focused on the opening. So then that means it is a new idea, because it's a relatively new idea to you, presented in a way that you have not seen before. Therefore, the second question you need to ask yourself is, out of everything that you want to talk about, what is that new idea? You have to be very clear to yourself. What is it that you're trying to influence your audience? Third question, what actions do I want the audience to take? So out of the hackathon, out of the design you're making and etc., you put together a presentation, but who exactly is your audience? And what do you want them to do in the end? Again, in this case, for me, it's quite clear. I hope very much that you guys will try to do a different sort of opening after hearing this presentation. That I'm going to show you 5 strategies that you would, in 1 or 2 of your upcoming presentations, you would say, hey, let me give it a try. It isn't that difficult. Or, I got an idea. Maybe I'm going to try it and see how it goes. I also hope that you will apply these 3 questions in your next presentation and clarify to yourself what exactly it is that you are trying to convey. What is the key message that you want your audience to capture? So for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I would very much like you to apply these 3 questions to your presentation and see what you come up with. Now, for those who are on site, if you have a presentation done, can you please work on these 3 questions and see if, after you apply it to your presentation, to see if it is clear enough to the audience. For those online, I would like you to do the same thing. If you have a presentation ready, I would very much like you to apply these 3 questions and see if you would like to move things around after replying to these 3 questions. Okay, so what are the 3 questions? The first one, what is the main purpose or objective of the presentation? A second question, what is the new idea that you want to communicate? And the third question, what actions do you actually want your audience to take after listening to your presentation? For those on site, is there someone who actually have a presentation ready? You do? Okay. I will just jumble up a little bit and see what you think. Do you mind sharing with us what do you think is the new idea that you're trying to communicate? Do you want to come on stage and join me? Yeah, in fact, don't worry that, because it is exactly that process of speaking out loud, speaking out your thoughts loud, and discussing it with other people, that it will work out better. So what is the new idea, you think?
All right, testing. What's the new idea I want to communicate? So actually, regarding the first question that you mentioned, how to make an opening statement, right? What is the main purpose objective of my presentation? Obviously, like, I guess it's always best to, just mention who we are, what is our purpose, right? In the best way possible, in the most succinct way possible for everyone to understand. So that's what I would assume with the first question. Now,
But what exactly is the main objective? What are you trying to get to for your presentation?
just answering all the questions: who are we? What do we do? Why are we doing this? And then later on, how do we do it? Basically,
That's
answering
the
all the questions.
content. Okay, you don't mind me working out with
course,
you,
of
right?
course.
But that's the content, that's the agenda of the presentation.
Right.
That's still not the objective of the presentation. What do you want to get to with your presentation?
To spread a message to the people that we provide this. We are willing to provide this new opportunity for everyone, for those, provide this service for people, and that we can help the community in general, like something like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So there are actually a number of different messages. You are launching something new, and it is a new services. And
Right.
in fact, you are hoping that new service will help people
Right.
around you. Okay, that's great. And okay, then very naturally it comes to question two. What is the new idea then? What is this new opportunity or new service?
Do I have to mention the project that my group is working on?
Up to you.
Okay. So basically, the new idea that we're trying to communicate is that we're trying to provide, financial accessibility to all those who are underserved. So the thing is that a lot of, let's say, the idea of borrowing money, it's quite partial. It's quite partial. I think it's very difficult for because the thing is that people assume people who are not very high in income to be of low output, to provide lesser output to grow, to help the economy grow. But how can you say that if you don't give the opportunity to flourish? So that is kind of like the new idea I want to communicate, that we want to provide that opportunity for everyone to flourish, for those who are underserved to feel deserved, in the sense that to feel like they are included in that sense. Yeah.
And how does that work out? Is it by providing them workshops that build their confidence? Is it by giving them funding? Is it, how do you do
So
that?
basically, the concept of the whole the startup idea that my group has in mind is basically providing an alternative credit scoring model, through which we try to use artificial intelligence and machine learning, all these kind of concepts, to provide the best credit scoring, best score possible, and that we value these people the best, the people who are underserved the best, compared to actual financial institutions and banks. So we do that for them. We do that scoring for the financial institutions, and we provide the opportunity to get loans for the customers. So it's
Very interesting. So you are going to
Yeah.
you're talking about a new way of doing the credit scoring.
not exactly a new way, but a way that I think it should be given in Hong Kong and China. That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you mean by not exactly a new way?
I mean, it's just that alternative credit scoring has always been there, but it's just not this purpose has not been served, I guess.
Okay.
That. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Okay.
A new way, let's say.
All right. So but then you want people to then adopt something that they have not really been utilizing in full
Yeah, I
force.
think it's really important for the community to realize that it's not just enterprises or innovation and
That's right.
technology that's gonna lead the way forward. It's also providing the welfare for the people.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to keep that in mind.
So that then leads very naturally to the third question, which is what actions do I want the audience to take? So I guess in the first place, who is your audience? for the presentation that you're working on, and what actions would you like them to take?
I think what actions do I want the audience to take is that I want them to be aware that there are people who are underserved, and that even like we should be aware that we are here and we may be slightly privileged, we may not be, and even so, and maybe those who are not feeling like included financially, they should know that there may be an opportunity that they will feel they will be included, hopefully with this with the service that I want to provide, or my group wants to provide. Yeah.
So I give you the last challenge. So if you combine your answer for all these 3 questions, what would you say is the key message of your presentation? Let me define key message my way. I'll be a little bit authoritative here.
Sure.
The key message is the message that you can give your audience in 30 seconds if they only give you 30 seconds for your presentation. So if they said, I have 30 seconds now, tell me what is it that you want to tell me. What are you going to say?
I need to think this. I just need to think this through a bit. I mean, honestly, like the main message that I want to say is that you are included. That through this service, through machine learning and artificial intelligence, we will provide you the appropriate credit score in order for you to seek the I don't know how to explain it, but maybe to be given the right amount of money that you deserve without being penalized, and that you deserve to be included. So that's kind of like that.
Hey, thank you very much. Would you introduce yourself?
Okay.
What's your name?
I'm Soumyadeep Das. You can call me Som for short. And currently the startup that my group is working on is, I hope to present maybe later on. It is called Credivate. Credivate meaning credit and elevate in a sense. So maybe combining these 2 things together, like we aim to elevate the people and provide them with the right amount of money, or help them seek the right amount of credit that they deserve, and hopefully they are able to be financially included, and through that we hope to help them be financially included, as well as provide financial literacy, such as saying that these opportunities are included, and we can help you, we can advise you like how to do it. And maybe in my presentation, like if I'm able to have the opportunity to present, I can show you that we can assess what can be done, what can you do, what are the good things about your score, what are the bad things about your score, what can you improve on, so that is what we're trying to do here. And I think that's it.
That's great. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Song.
no worries.
Right?
Yeah,
thank you.
sure.
Thank you. So thank you very much, a very brave soul who come up and answer these 3 questions. Now, these 3 questions, as I demonstrated with Som's help just now, is actually an iteration. So it doesn't mean that you answer it once and you say, great, I got it, Basically, this is a set of questions that actually help you to think and rethink about what is your key message. And a lot of time, what is missing in our presentation is that the key message doesn't appear on the first or second slide. I gave Som a challenge just now. I said, if the executive or the audience only give you 30 seconds, and they said, okay, what is it that you have to tell me? Som said, he doesn't really think that is true, right? Is that what you were saying? Well, a lot of people wouldn't believe that the audience would only give you 30 seconds. The truth is, a lot of time the audience really only give you 30 seconds. Because beyond a minute, if you still haven't got to the key point, they will get distracted. So these 3 questions actually help you to think and rethink about your key messages, such that you put within the first 5 slides, you articulate your key message very well, which means that before the audience get distracted by anything else, they already heard your key message. This is something that is so important. So these are the 3 questions that we hope that for each presentation, you would actually ask yourself and keep asking yourself until the minute you come up to the stage or until the minute you make the presentation. You would ask yourself, what is the purpose? Why is it that I'm doing this presentation? And what is the new idea? I must get the new idea across within the first 5 slides. And what actions do I want the audience to take? The second thing I'm going to talk about is the 5 strategy to power up the opening. I used the first one just now when I opened this presentation, which is pose a question. So the question that I asked just now was, how do we actually engage people in the opening of the presentation? So this technique is actually something that a lot of presenters would use. Let's see what Dr. Lara said when she first opened her presentation.
So, as I was mentioned, I'm Dr. Lara Boyd. I'm a brain researcher here at the...
Sorry, can you go back to the...
So how do we learn? And why do some of us learn things more easily than others? So, as I was mentioned, I'm Dr. Lara Boyd. I'm a brain researcher here at the...
So her question was, so how do we learn? And why do some people learn more easily than others? That was her opening line, even before she introduced herself. That's a technique. If you go online to look at some of the TED Talks and other famous people speaking, you find that there's a technique that a lot of people use. They actually do not come up and say, hi everybody, I'm Helen or I'm so and etc. I actually intended to open the presentation with the question as well, but there were some technical issues, so I resorted to, never mind, I will start saying who I am instead of making all of you wait. But starting off with a question before you even know who is it on stage is actually quite a common technique. What does that do? When Dr. Lara Boyd asked the question, so how do we learn? And why is it that some people learn more easily than others? What does that do? What does that do in you? Actually gets you to think. The questions have to be, of course, very well defined. So if she come up and say, oh, hi, so how is everybody? What did you do over the weekend? That's a different sort of question. Okay, so that's not the kind of question we're talking about. We're talking about questions that would actually be very relevant for the content that you're talking about, so that you start off the audience to think about the content in the direction that you want them to think. So that's the first technique. Pose a question. Okay. A second technique, a second strategy is use a quote. A lot of time for the topic that you're talking about, you would be able to find quotes online quite easily by people famous people, or even quotes that you have never heard of, but somehow just point very clearly to what you're trying to talk about. So the next one, I'm going to show an example. And this quote is almost a cliche, something that people use so often.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. It's the oldest adage in the book, but it's true. The quote traces back to a 1911 article in the Syracuse Post-Standard, and it's credited to editor Tess Flanders. She was talking about the power of images as a journalistic tool when she said this. And while the quote's over a century old, the message is something we can all empathize with even today. Images hit us far faster and on a far deeper level than words ever could. This is John.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. Okay, this is a quote that everybody knows. And the topic that he is going to talk about is actually how to make use of graphics and designs to convey an idea. And using a quote up front already set the tone and let you understand what is it that he is going to talk about next. He was going to show more pictures and etc. after that quote. But using a quote is actually a very, very effective way to focus people's attention and get to what you want to say quite quickly and quite easily. A third one is to use an immersive experience exercise. So everybody on site, I would actually like you to try this. And of course, those who are online, you can do it too. Can you cross your arms? Just cross it. Probably have tried this exercise before. Can you now swap your arms around so that if you have your left arm on top, you now swap it such that your right arm is on top. And if you have your right arm on top, swap it such that your left arm is on top. Can you swap it? Okay. Some of us would find it easy. Many of us find it very difficult. When we do a presentation, we say that we want to transform our audience. It is as difficult, if not more, as swapping our arms around when we cross our arms. It is actually changing habits, and we are talking about habitual thinking. We are actually talking about changing mindset. As Som mentioned just now, the idea is not new. It's not exactly new. It has been around. But that's the difficult part, right? If it has been around, then why hasn't it been adopted widely? It is as difficult as that. So this is an example of using an immersive experience. Let's look at an example here.
We would like to introduce.
Hello, everyone. I would like us to begin with a short exercise. So can everybody place their hands like this? Reach out your hands. Thank you. And I will count to 3. And when I say 3, I want you to clap your hands, okay? 1, 2, 3. So I did this to show you that we don't always do as other people tell us to do. We'd rather do as other people do. And this is important when it comes to creating well-being in ourselves and in others. I'm a psychologist, and I train organizations, teams, and individuals in creating happiness and well-being.
Illustrate that people don't always do as they are told, but they do as they observed what others do. So she was saying she clapped on a count of 3, but because she herself clapped on the count of 2, everybody else did, right? Immersive exercise is always good to illustrate points that are hard to explain or hard to understand. So, for example, the experience we had just now on crossing our arms, sometimes it's actually easy to forget how hard it is to change a habit. But when you have experienced it, crossing the arms one way or the other is nothing hard at all. It's something that everybody can actually do. But still, you experience how hard it is to actually swap around, right? And you even laugh at yourself or laugh at others. Likewise, in her case, it is a great way to actually illustrate that even you yourself didn't follow what people tells you to do, but rather you just do what others people do. So using an immersive experience or using an immersive exercise is actually a very good way for people to get your audience to experience your message, to experience what you are going to tell them. The next one is tell a short personal story. I highlighted here personal in red. It is extremely important because when we say tell a story, and there are a lot of presentation skills that talk about storytelling skills, then a lot of people started thinking that presentation storytelling is about telling fictional stories, stories that they come up with, or stories that they have heard, stories that doesn't have to be real. But in fact, when we do storytelling in a presentation, especially if we are doing an opening, it is usually a personal story. It is a real personal experience. So one of my real personal experience in realizing how important opening is, let me share with you. I'm someone who is very, very interested in art. And it was back in 2015, I actually registered for a class in France where they talk about contemporary art in France. And I have a very busy schedule. So the class starts on Monday and ends on Friday, and I could only arrive Monday early morning, 6:40 a.m. in Paris at Charles de Gaulle, and then I have to rush out all the way to Paris. The class will start at 9. And so I remember I took the bus, and then there was a short distance. I walk over, carrying my luggage, and when I settled down, it was just slightly before 9, and I was busy texting my friends because the class itself is, of course, exciting, but being in Paris is something to text your friends about. And so I was texting my friends and said, "Hi, everybody, I'm in Paris, da, 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 da." After a short introduction of the speaker, of our lecturer, he opens, and the first line he said was extremely interesting. He said, "Being in Paris to study contemporary art is a very strange thing because Paris is not well known for contemporary art." So at that moment, I put down my phone and I looked up and I said, "You must be kidding me. I pay all this money. I flew all the way here. It's early morning. I'm having jet lag. And you are telling me that Paris is not the place to come for contemporary art. So why am I here?" So he definitely captured my attention. And I put down my phone. And of course, from that point onwards, his lecture was so interesting that I just pay attention the whole day. That was the first day. Second day was very interesting. Third day was very interesting. Fourth day was very interesting. Now the fifth day come. And by the fifth day, I was thinking, we have really talked about everything by now. Really everything. Everything that I wanted to know about contemporary art. Plus, this is the last day. And I was thinking about where to go shopping. And I was again on my phone. Why? Because I was texting my friends, hey, what do you guys want me to buy? So I was texting away again. And again, he opens the class with a line that totally captured my attention. He said, today we are going to talk about a very important topic. There are many people who wonder, how do you set the line between art and craft? How do you set the line between art and craft? It's true, it's a question that a lot of people ask. And he said, back in Renaissance time, if it is men's work, it is art. If it is women's work, it is craft. Because a woman can never do a work of art. So you can imagine what happened, right? Who cares about the shopping? I put down my phone and I want to listen. I want to hear about this. What is it that he's trying to say? What is it? What was that mindset back in the Renaissance time? Why is it that a woman's work cannot be art? And this experience really gave me a very strong personal experience that the opening is actually so important. Opening really sets the tone for the rest of the day. And the opening actually gives you a stimulation that you can start thinking about the content along the way that he's talking about. Of course, you have to pick the right story. The story usually is controversial in one way or the other. The story maybe have some kind of mystery. There's a question that lingers in that story. And also the story probably has some kind of a new ideas, incorporates the new ideas that you're talking about in it. So telling a short personal story is the next strategy. And let's see this one. This is Tim Brown from a company called Dale. And you probably want to pay attention to this company, so you might want to look up this company. So let's see what he says.
I'd like to talk a little bit this morning about what happens if we move from design to design thinking. Now this rather old photo up there is actually the first project I was ever hired to do, something like 25 years ago. It's a woodworking machine, or at least a piece of one. And my task was to make this thing a little bit more modern, a little bit easier to use. I thought at the time I did a pretty good job. Unfortunately, not very long afterwards, the company went out of business. This is the second project that I did. It's a fax machine. I put an attractive shell around some new technology. Again, 18 months later, the product was obsolete. And now, of course, the whole technology is obsolete. Now, I'm a fairly slow learner, but eventually it occurred to me that maybe what passed for design wasn't all that important. Making things more attractive, making them a bit easier to use, making them more marketable. By focusing on a design, maybe just a single product, I was being incremental and not having much of an impact. But I think this small view of design is a relatively recent phenomena, and in fact,
that his personal experience of how his designs failed.
Emerged on a design, maybe just a single product, I was being incremental and not having much of an impact.
This is another example of sharing the personal story.
So today I'm going to talk about how our mindsets matter in virtually every facet of our lives. But I want to begin by telling a story about a group of researchers in Italy. Dr. Fabrizio Benedetti and his colleagues studied a group of patients undergoing thoracic surgery. Now, what you should know about thoracic surgery is that it's a very invasive procedure. patients are put under anesthesia while the surgeons make major incisions into the muscles of the sides and the back in order to gain access to their heart and to their lungs. Now, about an hour after the anesthesia fades away, the pain starts to set in. Fortunately, patients are given strong doses of morphine sulfate, a powerful painkiller. This is routine treatment for thoracic surgery, but Dr. Benedetti and his colleagues made a few subtle tweaks. Half of the patients were given the dose of morphine by a doctor at their bedside. The other half was given the exact same dose of morphine, but it was administered into their IV by a pre-programmed pump. Now, you would think that both of these groups of patients would experience the same relief, but this was not the case. The group that received the morphine by the doctor reported significant reductions in their pain levels. The other group, the group who received the same exact amount of morphine but wasn't aware of it, they didn't seem to experience the same benefit. So Dr. Benedetti and his colleagues didn't stop there. They used the same procedure to test the effectiveness of other treatments, treatments for anxiety, treatments for Parkinson's disease, treatments for hypertension. And what they found was remarkable and consistent. When the patients were aware of the treatment and expected to receive the benefit, the treatment was highly effective. But when they weren't, that same drug, that same pill, and that same procedure was blunted, and in some cases, not even effective at all. So I read about these studies when I was a student at Harvard University, and at the time I was heavily immersed into the literature on the placebo effect. And the more I read, the more I...
So this is another example. Tim Brown shared his example of how he failed in his designs, and he's going to lead on from design to design thinking, why design thinking is important when you are a designer. She went on to talk about a set of experiments done by a doctor. It seems irrelevant because she's talking about mindset change. It also seems it's not personal experience until the last bit. The last part talk about how this experience actually intrigued her, how the results of this experiment actually inspire her to think further. And if you look at the rest of her speech, you would realize that there are lots of actually parallels between what she is going to talk about and the experiment that she shared. So this is another strategy that you can use for your opening, which is to share a personal story that somehow touches the audience so that the audience understand where you're coming from. They understand your intention. They understand what you have seen and what you have observed and why that touches you. And because it touches you, it touches the rest of the audience. And the final one is to use humor. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know why it says Homer, but it's actually humor. Okay, now let's look at the next page. To use humor, there are multiple ways of doing it. You can have a simple joke. So for example, I could have opened this presentation with this. I have prepared a 100-slide presentation for the next 1 hour, and I will be reading the slides word for word. Okay. So if I open a presentation skills training with this slide, I hope that the audience will get that this is a joke. I hope that the audience wouldn't think that we are really going to do that and that I'm going to show you these skills. So this is one way of doing it, just to show a joke. You can also show a comic. There are lots of comic around that you can just copy and paste that actually speaks to what you're trying to say. I actually considered using this because this is actually the last session of day 2. I believe that a lot of you are already in this state. And even if I'm trying to tell a joke, I think nobody is really going to listen. Okay? So using a comic is another possible way of doing it. And let's look at this as well. This is Bill Dayton.
Do you like sitting next to weird people? I don't like sitting next to weird people. I think that's true for most of us. I mean, be honest, how many of you wish you could change seats right now?
You would like to change seats right now, he said.
The problem, though, is that by avoiding the weird people, by staying inside that comfortable cocoon of people like us, we're actually cutting ourselves off from the very people and experiences that can lead to our most creative ideas. And we need those ideas now more than ever. A few years ago, I was flying home to Seattle from New York. I had an aisle seat, and in the middle seat was nobody. I know, right? So I'm doing like my little internal happy dance, when just before the doors close, one last passenger gets on the plane. She was different. I don't know what Methuselah's grandmother actually looked like, but this had to be close. As she's shuffling down the aisle, I'm thinking, don't panic, Bill. It's a big plane. Come on, what are the odds? I'll tell you what the odds were, 100%. She stops right beside me, pokes me with her bony finger, points to my empty seat, and says, please, I am there. Sad dance. So I did what most of you might have done. I retreated into my cocoon.
So she was using a joke, a few jokes, and a funny story to illustrate how we avoid creative ideas. Okay, we often find people who are weird, but probably they are the ones who have creative ideas. We want to avoid these weird people as much as possible. And he used a number of jokes in a very light way, illustrated that. And actually build a bond with the audience. It's not only him who wants to avoid the weird people. It's actually the audience who from time to time also want to avoid the weird people. So altogether, I have shown you 5 different strategies, ranging from number 1, we could actually pose a question. The second strategy, we can actually use a quote. We can also tell a personal story. We can also use humor. Okay, so there are many, many different strategies that you can actually make use of. So what we would like you to do is to actually focus on your opening. Make it a really good one. Master the 3 questions and the 5 different ways, 5 different strategies to power up your presentation. Open it right and capture the attention and stimulate their thinking. And that way, I'm very sure that you are onto a good path of influencing your audience. Okay. So thank you very much. We hope that today's presentation skills training will help you in opening your presentation in a powerful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Helen Oh, for the valuable coaching section. With this, the event as planned for today has officially come to an end. We thank you all, guest speakers and participants, for joining and participating in this event. All teams, kindly please submit your videos and presentation decks at the link provided in the Zoom chat box below by 11:59 p.m. today. Thank you for everyone and goodbye.